Okay, thank you everybody for joining us today for April's presentation of Master Naturalist Monday. I am Jamie Bachman, the current coordinator for the Nebraska Master Naturalists. I am so grateful for our presenter, Brianna, to join us today. I'm going to keep navigating, adding people, admitting people as they trickle in, but I'm going to go ahead and start. If you're new to this series, I have worked in a little bit of time at the very beginning for a reflective prompt. And this reflective prompt is just for us to kind of open it up for a little bit of engagement with the people that are on here, all of you. If you would like to comment, it's just a little bit of a member engagement. And then also, then we'll have our presenter present. And then at the end, we will have I will update you on the events that are happening, that are up and coming, and then we will have a call to action. Excuse me. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to begin with our reflective prompt. Can everybody see that? Can I get a thumbs up?
Yes.
Thank you. I should also say too that if everybody can remain muted unless otherwise prompted, that would be super great. I need to find where I can let people in. Here we go. Admit. Okay. And then I need one more thing up and then I'll be able to talk about this reflective prompt. Okay. So our reflective prompt today is going to be a quote by Ansel Adams, a well-known photographer. I don't know a whole lot about how he is received culturally, but I I feel a little bit connected to him because in his biography, oh, let me find this. I kind of just shut this down. He was described as a hyperactive child, and his lack of attention and disruptiveness in school. And he had so much of that he was expelled from several schools. And then his father decided to homeschool him at the age of 12. This kind of spurred, or here's a quote too. Ansel had from his biographer, Ansel had to be in motion at all times, otherwise he would twitch with frustration, his mind flitting along with his body. Whenever he had to sit in the classroom, he would fidget, yearning to be set loose in the wonderful outdoors. In the classroom, he felt enchained. And so I kind of feel a little bit of a connection to Ansel being one of those kinds of learners. And so I pulled a quote today from Ansel. You don't improve nature. And I should also say he's a very well-known photographer of wildlife and landscapes if you didn't know that. But this quote from him is, you don't improve nature, you reveal your impression of nature or nature's impact on you. And I would like to I have some space here for everyone. If anyone would like to put in the chat what this quote means to you, like how do you interpret this quote, or you feel free to unmute yourself and contribute to the conversation. That would be great. Any first takers? Oh, I see in the chat. Carla, thank you for contributing. She had not seen this quote from him before, and she agrees that yes. That's some nerdy photography talk there, Jim. Jim says impressions in 1/25th of a second of f11. So these are shutter speed and aperture language in photography. Any specific impressions that you get, or any specific meanings that you get to yourself in this about how our impressions of nature and or nature's impact on us? I like this. This quote makes perfect sense and helps bring understanding to him as a person. Thank you for that feedback. The way we connect about nature is through our humanity. Oh, that's powerful. And feel free to unmute as well.
Carla said, I have many friends who think nature is where they are closest to God. It is their church, and I strongly relate to that.
Andrea says we can make more space for nature. It leaves its impression on my spirit and inspires me. Oh, I like this too, Judy. It focuses how the natural world can demand your respect if you take time to notice. That's powerful as well. I got goosebumps on my legs. Jennifer agrees and says nature, when unspoiled by humans, is the best it can be. All we can do at that point is soak it in. Oh, there's Kathy. There is no improving nature. It's already perfect. It is my religion, Heidi. Yeah. Oh, thank you for these. This is powerful. I appreciate this. Any last takers, and we'll begin our presentation. His photographs are amazing. Yes, and Judy says the black and white ones are so powerful. I agree. This photo in the background is actually mine. I should have said that. I didn't want to take one of his photos and put it up without for whatever reason. I was like, oh, I probably shouldn't do that. Yep, Judy said, yes, there were a lot of photos that he took of Yosemite. And I think that in his biography, there are some great quotes about how that experience really changed him and really kind of thrust him into the world of photography for sure. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing here and I'm going to introduce our, and if there's still some that are coming in into the chat, I'll try to get those in there at the end. So I'm going to stop sharing and I would like to introduce our speaker in just a moment. Okay. So again, thank you all for coming. And I want to remind you all that this is being recorded and you'll be able to find it on our YouTube page. And the playlist is Nebraska or Master Naturalist Mondays. So I'm so happy to be here with my friend, fellow Master Naturalist, Brianna. She has been a fabulous environmental educator at the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission, and currently she is working as the administrative technician and an environmental educator at the environmental education and the division, the Fish and Wildlife Education Division at the Game and Parks Commission. So she is a part of the crew that is working to increase ecological literacy across the state of Nebraska, and she does powerful, meaningful work. She was on active duty for 7 years and served 5 years in the Nebraska Air National Guard. And while she was finishing up her bachelor's degree in environmental science in 2021, she became a certified Nebraska Master Naturalist. She's now working with the incredible Fish and Wildlife crew and at the Game and Parks Commission, and she has the Nebraska. She says that she has the Nebraska Master Naturalist program to thank for that. Photography has always been a passion of hers, and she has recently discovered the small world of macro photography. That's really exciting. So I'm just gonna hand it over to you, Bree.
All right, let me just share my screen. All right, thumbs up. Can everybody see? Awesome, thank you. Okay, so I titled this Framing Nature, Education Through Photography. I had some help coming up with that name from Allie Mays. She helped me come up with this fabulous, very photo nerdy name for this presentation. So Jamie kind of touched on this a little bit about me, but I'm originally from the Southern Oregon coast. I was born in Tucson, Arizona, but I call Oregon my home. I spent most of my childhood there, and that's really where I grew to love nature. I was always out playing in the woods, turning over logs for insects. Beetles are one of my favorite. And I spent time at the beach and the mountains. And then I was uprooted from that and sent to Nebraska, which is somewhere I had never heard anything about. That was all very new to me. So I think I really grew a connection to Nebraska through being an outsider and having to explore the state maybe more deeply than somebody that has lived here. So I was always trying to find somewhere to go to hike, do the things that I love to do outside. And I think picking back up with photography was a big part of that exploration because I just wanted to find really unique places and maybe more places that offer more solitude. Because when I'm taking my pictures and everything on my hikes and whatnot, I like to take it really slow and I don't want to be in the way of other people. So I usually would seek those kind of like off the trail places. I have always been into photography. When I was in high school, I was part of a photography club. I worked on the yearbook staff taking photos, and I kind of lost it along the way. Life kind of just took over with other things. And then I picked it back up once I moved to Nebraska. I got back into photography, and a lot of it was just on my phone, and I still do this. I have, I don't know, over 3,000 something photos just from my phone that are saved to the Google Cloud. And before that, it was just SD cards that I would have to change out all the time because I just had photos on there. So now I'm a little bit better, and I do bring my camera more places. But the last couple years, I've really gotten into macro photography. For those of you that don't know, that is taking pictures of very tiny things. So kind of exploring those smaller worlds that we often overlook or even step on sometimes when we're walking through the forest and the prairie. So before I really get into my photography, I'm gonna talk a little bit about why visual learning is so important. So I'm sure, as most of you are aware, we live in a very visual heavy world. We are constantly bombarded by watching TV, streaming things on Netflix and Hulu, consuming things on social media, getting those advertisements that we all love on social media like Facebook and Instagram, and even our streaming services. And that also means that if we're seeing all this stuff, our children are also consuming all of those same things. So they are very stimulated by visual things. And this is something, as environmental educators and just educators in general, we need to be cognizant of and be aware of, like, wow, these kids are consuming these visual stimuli all the time, and we need to use that in our education. So that's not just photographs either. That's graphics, illustration, videos, photographs. All of these things can help children and adults make deeper connections to topics and also help that information retention. So these are the four widely accepted paths to learning that we as humans have. I'm sure many of us have all seen this before: the visual, the auditory, reading, kinesthetic, so using your hands to do things. And a lot of people have preferences, right? We all have preferences to the way we learn, but studies have shown that we can all learn using these different ways, but they're most effective when they're used together. So even though I might say that I am a hands-on learner, it is also really beneficial for me to maybe have some auditory to go with it, or some visual aids, or even text to go with those things. So having more than one path for us to learn is really important for how our brains comprehend and retain information. So this term, the pictorial superiority effect, came out after some of those studies were conducted that let us know that people learn better with images and text rather than just text alone. And that's just the term that they use to describe that phenomena of our human brain's ability to recall information more effectively when they're paired with images. And as we've all kind of learned about cave paintings, so cave paintings have been around for a really long time as a way for humans to communicate with each other and to, keep logs of what was happening then. And they weren't using written words or anything, they were using images, and we've been doing that for 30, like around 32,000 years. So that kind of tells us a little bit more about how humans are wired naturally to consume things visually and comprehend things visually rather than using written text. That's kind of relatively new to humans. So we're going to talk a little bit more about why it's so effective. So visuals stick in our long-term memory. This is a little bit more of the data behind that. So one study found that participants were only able to recall 10 to 20% of written or oral information versus 65% of visual information. So participants in this study, they were given just written or oral text, and then the other half was given visuals or visuals and text to go with each other. And out of those groups, this is what they found, which is really, I think that's insane. So it's really cool to think about how powerful visuals are with retaining information. It also improves comprehension. So images impact learners on that cognitive level, and it encourages imagination. So when we were kind of talking about Ansel Adams and his incredible photography, you can kind of use your imagination a little bit more when you're looking at his photographs or photographs in general. Like, you can picture yourself there. You can use your imagination a lot more than you can if you're just seeing text. Text is almost kind of like putting it in that box, right? You're like, this is it. This is all I have to go off of. But when you see an image, it kind of like immerses you a little bit more, and your brain has that ability to use the imagination. And when it's doing that, it's actually comprehending and synthesizing a lot of information at once. So it's a really cool way to understand something better. And as we were talking about Ansel Adams again, visual cues trigger emotions. Um, if you guys want to share, if you want to put in the chat maybe an image, it could be a photograph that has triggered a deep emotion in you. You don't have to know like anything about it, just like a description of the image that has really evoked a big emotion in you when you saw it and it stuck with you. If you'd like to share that in the comments, I would love to hear about it. And the reason why this is so important for us to get that emotional connection through an image is because our visual memory is encoded in the same area of the brain where our emotions are processed. So if we're making that deep connection to a image on that emotional level, it is more likely for our brains to retain it and to have that kind of like that anchor to it. Because if we're processing an emotion that goes along with it, we're also going to be more likely to keep that information and image in our brains. So now I'm going to get a little bit more into the photography side of things. So how photography can be used as an educational tool. And this is like one of my favorite pictures, this little longhorn bee just hanging out on this flower. It's just, their eyes are so cool. And I nerded out about this beautiful bee being in my garden for a long time. He was probably very over it at that point. So these are some of the things that I've like helped create or things that we create in the Fish and Wildlife Education Division. A lot of our educational materials are very, they're very photo heavy because when we're going out to programs, we usually work with a diverse group of audiences, and they may have reading disabilities. They may speak a different language. So if we were to use something that was really text heavy, it would be inaccessible to a lot of the people that attend our programs. So some examples I have on the right-hand side, I have a build a bird nest. And this went along with our, we had a solstice countdown, a winter solstice countdown. So we were like having some activities that families could do together for before the solstice, the winter solstice. And this was like build a bird nest. So a lot of people, when they're like, oh, I'm going to build a bird nest, they just think of your run-of-the-mill cup bird nest. But we wanted to show other examples for people to kind of use their imaginations a little bit more. And in the middle, we have Trail Tales, which is a magazine that we publish that goes out to fourth graders, and we also bring them to events sometimes. But this one's also really photo heavy. We have a lot of incredible photographers that work for Nebraska Game and Parks, and they help us really put these incredible magazines together with these fantastic images. And then on the left, this is something that we use in our Nature Nerd Trivia nights. If any of you have attended, you may have seen this. We always have, well, usually have some kind of photo round. So it's kind of like a fun way to correlate some of the information on there, kind of give people little clues to what the questions are asking. Now, this is how I personally share my photos. I don't love social media. I don't love all aspects of social media. But the reality is, this is the best way to reach a diverse group of people and a lot of people. So for me, this is the best way that I have found to share my photos. And it's a fun way too, because I get to add captions that go along with it and interact with people. Sometimes they're just my family, and other times they're people that I haven't talked to for a long time. So with a lot of people being glued to their phones, it's really important to use those eye-catching images. So it takes them a second. They have to stop and maybe even read your caption. So I think it's like a really powerful tool to get people to slow down and stop that constant, just mindless scrolling for a second. And this is a really cool praying mantis. I've actually never seen this like seen them this up close. And I took this like right outside our office building. Was just hanging out, having a snack and cleaning up after a meal. But I've never seen their mouths up close, and it's a little scary. It's a little intimidating. If I were a little buggy, I might be a little afraid of a praying mantis. So another thing that images do for us is provide evidence. Um, I don't know about you guys, but I'm sure a lot of you can relate. When I hear something or I learn a new fun fact, I have to research it. And I research it for a while until I feel comfortable, like with the knowledge that I've gained. I'm like, yep, this is true. Because there's a lot of false information out there. And we as humans really rely on that evidence to make connections to things and comprehend information better. And we're curious, so we seek that evidence out. So I have always heard of these incredible little caterpillars, this camouflage looper that you see on the left. I've heard about them and I have never seen one in person until last year. And this one was actually in my garden, graced my garden. And I can't tell you how excited I was when I saw this. I ran inside and grabbed my camera. I couldn't believe he was actually in my own garden. It was very cool. Um, so these little caterpillars are called the camouflage looper. And if you noticed, he has like these little red bits on him. So he's actually chewed out some of the petals on that prairie coneflower and has attached them to his back. Like he's using his silk-like glue to attach these beautiful little petals onto his back so he can blend in with the flower. It's absolutely incredible. Um, and if he moves to a different flower, he's just gonna take those bits off and put new bits on to match the flower. It's so cool. But without having looked for them or heard about them or anything, I probably would have never like known about them or found one in my garden because I've been actively looking for a while now. And this little caterpillar turns into this beautiful wavy line emerald moth that you see on the right. So just all around very cool. So this is something that I posted on my social media. I posted the both images and then the caption below kind of explaining it. And a lot of people were just blown away by this incredible little caterpillar and how cool it is. So I was really excited to share it. And I was blown away by how people responded to it and were also equally excited about it because it's just, I got to nerd out with people and it was great. A big thing that I like to do with my photos is to break stigmas surrounding the creepy crawlies that a lot of people like to avoid. Some people don't even like being outside because insects and spiders live out there. So I kind of like to use my photos as a way to paint them in a different light and hopefully get people to not maybe love them, but be that more neutral ground. So if I can show them these amazing animals living in their own spaces and not in their homes, maybe they'll be more of that neutral, like, well, I'm not going to kill it anymore. And I'm also not going to run away screaming. So if I could get people to that point, that would be amazing. The two images in the middle, those are my favorite kinds of spiders. They're crab spiders. We have two species in Nebraska that change color. So there's the white banded crab spider and the goldenrod crab spider. And both of them, when they go to a yellow or a white flower, can change their color to match the flower. So if one of these guys were to trade places, they would start to change the color of their bodies, and that would take like 1 to 3 business days for them to do. It's absolutely insane. And they are also able to reflect UV light. So a lot of pollinators that would come visit them would fall into their trap immediately because those insects usually see in UV and they are just going to blend, those spiders are going to blend right in with the flowers. So they're incredible ambush predators, but they live in flowers. So I like to tell people, like, this is a great gateway spider. They're not going to go in your home. They're going to just hang out in your garden or someone else's garden, and they're not going to bother you. They're just mad chilling. And then the spider on the left-hand side, those little guys are so small and they just live in grass. Or like when you are walking around the fall and you see all the goldenrods that are husks now, that's where they're hanging out. And they're just so tiny, but they're really cool. They make their little webs in there. And then this long guy here on the right, he is a type of orb weaver, and he belongs to a group of spiders they call stretch spiders. You could tell he looks very goofy. He looks like he was just in a Laffy Taffy puller. But they're just so cool. And these guys are the same. Like they don't want to be in your home. They want to hang out on some grass, or just like they get really flat and they make themselves part of the stem that they're on. They're just very strange. But again, they don't want to be in your home. So it's like a cool spider to introduce to people. Bees and wasps. Everybody is afraid of bees and wasps. I like to use my photos to kind of show the diversity that we have in Nebraska. A lot of the bees and wasps that we have are just so beautiful, and they almost look like they don't even belong here. Like they look like they should live in a tropical area, but they're so stunning. Um, like the down in the bottom right corner, that sweat bee, so cool. And I actually caught him in my garden. He was doing what a lot of our native bee species do, called pollination. So he'll hang on really tight and he'll vibrate his body until all of the pollen falls off onto him. So it's just like super cool. And that I caught it was even more special. And then we have two wasps here, the one in the middle at the top, gorgeous. And then this one down in the left-hand corner, absolutely insane. This one has if you can see, it has the ovipositor on its back. So like the stinger is laying on its back. And the way that they're a parasitic wasp. So the way that they'll use that to lay eggs it's very weird looking. They're doing some kind of yoga to get their ovipositor on their back to stab into whatever they're laying their eggs into. But I've never seen that before, and I probably would have never seen that if I hadn't slowed down to look. And paying attention. This is another thing I hope people get from my photos, is to slow down and pay attention to the tiny things that we often walk by, step on, or just plain ignore when we're hiking. I know that my husband, when we go on hikes, he is a from point A to point B hiker. I have this insane zigzag to get to the point B, and what would probably take people like let's say a mile might take somebody 15 minutes. That's going to take me probably 45. I just really love to slow down and find all the little things. That mushroom that I have a picture of on here, the little yellow mushroom, that was probably the size of my pinky nail. And I would have never have found that if I hadn't been like turning logs over and like looking for things. But because I stopped, I found a whole log covered in them, and it was so cool. Um, and the one in the middle at the bottom, that's just lichen with snowflakes on it. And liken's underrated. But if people stop to look at these things, I think they would appreciate our spaces more and have that time to slow down. It's just such a good mental break. I really zone out when I'm taking photos and looking for little things like this. So here's some key takeaways that I hope you got from this presentation. We are very visual creatures. We rely heavily on visuals to gather information. That's just how our human brains work. So using graphics and photos, other kinds of visual aids really help engage learners and also increase that information retention. So when we're out doing programs or sharing things on social media, we're hoping that it extends more to that moment. We're hoping that people take what we share, and that it follows them for a while, and that they can keep that information and share at parties, have those fun facts on hand. And visuals solidify concepts. So combining those visuals with oral and written information is an effective way to present complex concepts. So when we're presenting those really hard to understand ideas, offering those visual aids is a really great way to help people understood. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to read directions to put things together. I am always the person that looks for the pictures, and they really need to get better at the pictures. I was putting together Legos with my son. And I was like, I wish that everything was how Lego has made their directions, because it's great. And slow down. I would love for people to really take away from this is to slow down and look down. If I hadn't been doing that, I would have never found any of these incredible moments that I was able to capture. And you don't have to have a fancy camera. Like, yes, I do have a fancy camera, but that was an investment that I wanted to make. But if you don't have a fancy camera, our phone cameras are so amazing now that just taking pictures with your phone and sharing them with others is going to be it's just going to be amazing. And I think you'll find once you slow down to take pictures um, that a lot of other things in your life kind of take that as well, that slow down mentality. Because we're in that day and age where we just feel like we got to go, go, go. We got to do. But sometimes doing less is more, and it is a lot better for your mental health sometimes. And please share your photos. Share your photos with your friends, family, and other master naturalists. I always share my photos with my family because they are all over. I have family in Oregon and Arizona, and like my sister, I just share pictures of squirrels with her sometimes. She doesn't have squirrels in Arizona. She's like the ones that they have are mangy. They have like a bow and tail with nothing on it. So I share stuff like that with her because that's something she enjoys, and it's not something she sees every day. So I think you'd be surprised that people do care about your pictures, even if you don't think so. And it's a great way to share information. So when you're like me and you found something really cool and you want to nerd out about it, having a picture is always really helpful, and it gets that other person excited too because they get to share that with you. Um, but yeah, take pictures with whatever you have. And if you do want to know like what my camera setup is, I would be more than happy to share that information with Jamie. And then she can share that in the email if that's something that anybody wants to know. If you're interested in getting into macrophotography. These are the references that I used for this. These were all really great. They were great studies and materials to kind of learn more about how powerful imagery is for people learning. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for signing up and showing up for this presentation. I do have a website where I share my photography, and if you want to buy a print, you can. And through the proceeds, I will be donating 10% of insect photography to the Xerces Society, and they work with invertebrate conservation. And any of my other photos, the 10% will go to the Master Naturalist program. And Jamie will be sending out the link to my website with the resources from this presentation.
Oh, that was so good. Okay, so this is we're gonna have some time for questions. A lot of people have questions about what kit you use and what you're using. So if you could email that to me, and I'll send that out with the post presentation email, so everybody will get that presentation or that information. A couple of questions in the chat. Do you want me to find them for you, Bree? Is that and let you know what they are?
Sure.
Do you ever use your macro lens on your phone?
I actually do have a macro lens for my phone. They have some really inexpensive ones that you can buy off Amazon. They are very cool, and I can share some of those links with Jamie as well if you want to pick up using a macro lens for your phone. There's actually some really incredible macro photographers that just use their phone, and some of their photos are better than I could probably get with my camera sometimes. But it really is more of the person behind it rather than the equipment.
There are lots of lovely feedback about how
Yeah,
beautiful your photos are, friend.
thank you guys. I really appreciate you sharing photos that have had that emotional connection too. I think it's really cool to hear what people are drawn to with photography and what they've connected to. It's really special.
Do you have any tips about how to keep the insects from flying or hopping away?
I would love to say that I do. I have gotten better over time being able to sneak up, but that's like one of the challenges with macro photography, and wildlife photographers experience that as well. But I don't have that same, I don't have like that mega lens that I can be really far away. So right now working with a 100 millimeter lens. So I can keep some distance. That's why it's a little bit easier to start out taking pictures of things that don't move around as much. Like those crab spiders don't really move too much. Um, and then when you get to the winged insects, it's a lot easier if they're like pollinators and they're busy doing something. They're busy getting food. They're occupied and they're not really worried about you. They're a little bit easier to take photos of. But yes, taking images or insect glamour shots is very hard. And I have learned from crouching for a really long time and then getting no picture of the insect because it's gone by the time I'm ready. That that's just how it is sometimes, and it's the challenge of macro photography.
Feel free to, friends, if you would like to unmute yourself to ask a question or had to, to contribute to the discussion. Lynn asks, any tips for framing the shot you want to take?
Um, it is a little tricky when you're doing macro photography because once you start cropping, you're losing a lot of that resolution and you're not getting as clear. So the closer you can get, the better. And it also depends if you want to show some kind of movement in your photo, then you can leave some space from your subject to where you want people to kind of visualize them going, or you can have them in the center. But I usually try and get as tight as I can into the insect so I don't have to crop so much because then you start to lose that resolution and the clarity, and that's kind of a bummer.
I got a question. A friend of mine he posts pictures of birds,
Hmm.
and he has recently started signing them on Facebook. And I was wondering how to do that, but is that important? That I assume it's to kind of a way to keep the pictures for yourself or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
so they aren't shared everywhere. But
Yeah. A lot of people will put some kind of watermark on their photos if they're going to share them online. That way, people can't steal them essentially, especially if you're a photographer that wants to make money on your images and you like
yeah,
that credit. Um, I use Lightroom to edit my photos, and there's an option to put a watermark on there. That's kind of like Photoshop Light. I don't edit my photos a whole lot, so for me, like the Lightroom is fine. But you can put a watermark on there to kind of deter people from trying to use your images. Facebook's probably a good one because you can get a pretty decent sized picture to look at, which you could, download and take. But if you're sharing on like Instagram, the quality is going to be so low that I usually don't put one on there. I'm just not worried about people being able to do much with it. Um, but yeah, if you're wanting to sell your photos or anything, watermarking them can be a great way to make sure that they're yours and people don't take them.
thank you.
Hmm.
Kathy says she cheats and uses her iPhone taking a video and
Mm,
then goes back and finds a frame that she likes.
that's a good tip. Yeah, when you're using your phone, that's a good one. That's a good workaround for at least going back and getting something. Sometimes I do that if I just have my phone, I'll take a video sometimes and try and get that frame.
Thanks
Oh,
for
I like
posting
that.
this. Yeah, the eagle photo.
Yeah, that's
I just
cool.
clicked on it. You can see their eye so good in the light. That's
Mm-hmm.
amazing, Jim. Thank you.
Yeah, eagles are so cool. When I was walking in Fontenelle, I ran into somebody he was a wildlife photographer, and I asked him if he got any pictures, and he's like, "Yeah, just some bald eagles." And I was like, "That's pretty cool." I was like, "That's awesome." Another really cool thing about macro photography is you can kind of do it throughout the year, and
Mm.
you're not as reliant as things like when you're in the wintertime, there's not a lot out, but you can take super cool pictures of the ice and snowflakes and all those little details in the wintertime. So it's kind of nice. And um, I never really have that problem where I'm like, I didn't find anything to take pictures of today because there's tiny things everywhere. So it's kind of like a bonus. I'm like, oh, that's a bummer, but I found so many things.
I love that. Yep.
Mhm. Oh, I like that picture of the rattlesnake. That's cool. Yeah.
Any last questions or adding to the discussion? And I'll leave another 10 or 15 seconds for anybody to contribute. And if that's it, then we can move on to we'll wrap this up with the upcoming events and call to action. Bree, that was so lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you guys for sitting through.
It was great. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen so we can take a look at real quick here before you go. Take a look at some upcoming events and then our call to action. So, okay. Let's see. So, next month, excuse me, next month's Master Naturalist Monday is with Cassidy Wessel. She's going to be talking about a low-tech process-based restoration in Nebraska. And so this is a method for stream restoration that is rapidly gaining momentum in the states to the west of us. And so this will be a great presentation on restoration, some new updates on stream restoration. So I think you all will really appreciate that and really enjoy that. And Cassidy Wessel is a very intentional and thoughtful speaker. I really appreciate her coming on. She's with the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission out of the Northeast District. Oh, let's go over on this side. We have our Nebraska Master Naturalist June training coming up. The June training is at Cedar Point Biological Station over by Ogallala, Nebraska. The training is June 9th through the 15th. You can send in your application. If we have non-master naturalists on here, feel free to email me if you have questions, or you can send in your application to set up and then I'll be reaching out to set up an interview, and then we can have we'll have a really good conversation and be able to answer any of your questions if you're interested. Those folks that are nature enthusiasts or passionate about the outdoors and you want to deepen your understanding of Nebraska's unique ecosystems and wildlife, this would be a great great opportunity for you to become a master naturalist. Also, we have a few spots open for our community science workshop called the Nebraska Big Butterfly Count. This workshop came from Nebraska Master Naturalist Joe Langaby and her butterfly protocol that she developed as she was collecting butterfly data in Lurton Gardens and Fontenelle Forest. And we're working with the community science specialist Allie Mays and the pollinator ecologist Cody Dreyer, both at the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission. And we are putting together, fine-tuning the protocol, and figuring out the best way to work this workshop and this training with environmental education and community science best practices. And this is offered to you. This will be Eastern and Central butterflies, and you will be able to go out and collect this data and give it back to the project coordinator so that we can understand butterfly populations across the state. We will be doing other trainings in next season. And we will definitely be getting out to the west to do Western Nebraska butterflies as well. You can find some further information on how to register on our website, or feel free to email me. Our Nebraska Master Naturalist reunion, the date has been set. It will be the weekend of August 16th through the 18th at the Niobrara Valley Preserve. Details about that will be coming out shortly. I do want to thank the reunion committee for all of their great efforts and information and feedback on this venture. It's going to be a great weekend. I'm really excited. Don't forget, in the post email, follow-up email after this presentation that will be going out, you'll be getting information about Bree and her photography link. And I will also be sending out a link to the evaluations on this specific presentation. This is an opportunity for your feedback. Master Naturalist Mondays is for you. So any kind of feedback that you give me, it will allow me to change or move or do any, in service to this program and to the members in this program. So please fill out those evaluations. That's a way to have your voice heard. I would be super grateful. I can take constructive criticism too. Sometimes that's even more helpful. And our call to action today, it seems like we're kind of leaning into a theme. Our call to actions always have to do with practicing our observation skills. Be intentional about slowing down and paying attention. And in those moments of slowing down and paying attention, what do you notice and where does your curiosity take you? And with that curiosity, then what do you end up learning? Where does that curiosity lead you into wanting to further your understanding about the world around us as you slow down and are able to observe and pay attention? I'll also be sending out these slides in the post presentation email as well. I appreciate you all for coming out again. This recording will be out on our YouTube, Nebraska Master Naturalist YouTube page, and the playlist is Master Naturalist Mondays. Is there any questions, any last questions or contributions to the conversation? Okay, thank you for your time today, friends. I really appreciate it. Keep your eyes open for the email. Thank you again, Bree. This was so lovely. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.